Exciting morning. I do not want to cut into the speaking time of our next speaker for one single second. Tell you what, this pimp needs absolutely no introduction. He is a man who has done some of the most stunning investigative work that we have ever seen in the social media and political landscape. He has had a decade of doing this, and he is just getting started. Please welcome to the stage, James O'Keefe.
Thank you. We're good. We're good. Thank you. It's great to be here and following my, there you go, the Twitter hat. I love the Twitter hats. We're passing out these Twitter hats backstage for those who want them. So it's great to be here. Thanks for having me at AMPFest in Florida. I got some news to announce today as well, so we're going to get to that in a minute. But I'm going to kind of take you through a journey. They said I got 30 minutes, so I'm going to take you through a journey of what Project Veritas has done, what we stand for with this Be Brave campaign. So Project Veritas, you all know our work. We do those, we strap the little cameras to our lapels and we infiltrate, we expose, we go undercover. The media in this country is broken. It's corrupt. Journalism is extinct. So we're trying to revive it, but not in written form. We're trying to catch them on video. And you're familiar with some of the things that we do. Crossing the Rio Grande River.
This video, it's from the conservative watchdog group, Project Veritas.
Wading across the Rio Grande to show how easy it is to evade border security.
So crossing the river dressed like Osama bin Laden, we did that 5 years ago. Now, when you poke the bear, when you expose the truth, the empire strikes back. So I was actually detained at my border a few times after I did this. The United States government detaining a United States citizen for crossing into the country legally. That's where we stand. But I'm going to take you back. This is 2019, 10 years ago. We went undercover into Acorn, posing as a pimp and prostitute. This story was kind of got the inception behind Project Veritas, and because we're at the 10-year anniversary, I'm going to kind of walk you through this story and some things that happened through the story. I get a message from a girl on Facebook. I had never met this person before. She said, "Have you ever done any undercover work with Acorn?" I didn't know what Acorn was. I researched it. It was a group started by Barack Obama. He was an attorney for Acorn. They were getting housing loans. They were busting into doors of foreclosed homes. Spent some more time talking to this young woman. She says, what if two people went into the house that they were proposing for Acorn, said they wanted to start a business, and said they wanted to use it for prostitution? And I said, that's a great idea. There probably should be a pimp in this scenario. And she said, yes, I will do it. So I had to go about the business of finding someone to play the pimp. But I couldn't find anybody to play the pimp. It was hard to explain what we were doing. So I went to my grandmother, who I was living with at the time, and I said, Grandma, do you have like an old fur shawl coat that might pass for a pimp? You know, shot in the dark. It's either that or a flea market or a garage sale. And my grandmother said, what? Is there something about you I don't know? What is going on? And my grandmother gave me this chinchilla-looking fur coat. I drive down to D.C., where Hannah Giles was living, this young woman. And remember how surreal the circumstances are. I had never met this person before. I was talking to her on the internet, and she's dressed like a prostitute. She's dressed like this. And my grandmother leaves this fur coat on my bed, and I am dressed like that, right? That's what I'm dressed like. So, and we walk around D.C. We walk around D.C. like this. I mean, two kids from the cast of High School Musical 3 with a video camera and the grandmother's chinchilla coat. And we're walking around, and in all seriousness, we say, okay, we're going to do this. And we start the process, and we have no money. We have no organization, there's no donors, there's no Project Veritas. It's literally just two kids in a dream. This is 10 years ago. And we walk into all these offices, off the street, with this little hidden camera embedded in a satin tie. Hannah puts the pimp coat over her shoulder, and we walk into these offices. This is Philadelphia. We walk into the office. We are scared to death, our hearts beating 120 beats a minute, and we talk to these workers about how to start this brothel with taxpayer money, and to our shock, or maybe lack thereof in some cases, these workers tell us how to hide the money from the government. So I get all these tapes. I go visit with Andrew Breitbart. I knock on his door, and I say, Andrew, we've got all these tapes, and he says, I don't believe it. I say, okay, let me show you. I open my laptop. I knock on his door, and I fly to California, visit with Andrew Breitbart. He looks at the first tape, and he goes, Andrew Breitbart says, this is going to embarrass the New York Times. I said, what are you talking about, embarrass the New York Times? He said, because the media is going to purposefully and carefully lie and omit what you have found. The first clip I showed Andrew Breitbart when I opened my laptop was this.
Let me make sure there's a code for it, okay?
A code for prostitution?
You might have to name it something else. Performance arts. Let's see. Independent artist. You could be that. Your business is a performing artist.
A performing artist?
But you are. Okay? So you're not lying. So stop saying prostitute.
Your business is a performance artist. Then it goes on. I talk about, say, well, maybe I need to come up with some more outrageous scenario. I have 13 underage hookers that I employ. Maybe that will be the line that Acorn draws.
There's going to be 13 El Salvadorian girls coming into this house, and they're very young, and we don't want to put them on the books.
Please tell me 13 underage Salvadorian sex slaves is the line.
On the other part of the return, you can use them as a dependent. So
okay,
you can use them as a dependent because they live in your house.
Are you kidding me?
So this is what Andrew Breitbart called the Abu Ghraib of the Great Society. These workers who were engaging in, and by the way, there's no organization, I had no money. I had spent all night producing these tapes. The story blows up. The story blows up. It becomes the biggest video in the world. And I was living with my grandparents and my parents. This is just me, a dumb kid, living with my grandmother, waking up in the morning, the whole world's blowing up, and I had not slept, but I continue producing, and we released a second tape, this one in Washington, D.C., more of the same.
Girlfriend's a prostitute.
Okay.
And I don't know if...
I kind of figured that.
I'm using the money that she's getting, you know what I mean?
Right, but when the police ask you, you don't know where it's coming from. It's what we're trying to tell you.
All right.
We're looking out for you.
Okay, that's D.
That's D.C. What about New York? Hannah and I go to New York. We take Metro cards. We take them through the subways, and we go to the Bronx and Brooklyn and speak with these two workers who tell us how to hide the illicit prostitution cash in a tin can in the ground.
Buy the house with a backyard. You put the money right in there over it and put in, and you tell a single soul but yourself where it is.
Wait, a tin, I put the money in a tin?
In a tin and push it in there. Cover it, over and put the grass over.
Put the money in the ground. And this thing was just the biggest thing ever. And I think the indictment on the media was unbelievable because they had spiked the story on this Acorn group, and these two young people had done it all with no money and the costume and the 20-year-old young woman posing as the prostitute. In fact, in one of the videos, when we went into the Acorn office in Brooklyn, our hidden camera was walking around the place. The hidden camera filmed the wall, and on the whiteboard, there was more evidence of criminal activity. They were endorsing people they shouldn't have endorsed. So these videos prompted a House vote to defund Acorn. The Senate voted to defund Acorn. That was 83-7. And this was a sphere of consensus that was, unheard of. And even Barack Obama, then Democrat president, voted to defund Acorn.
What I know is that what I saw on that video was certainly inappropriate.
Certainly inappropriate, but perhaps the most telling. Inappropriate. Certainly inappropriate. It's the best you're going to get. Perhaps the most telling was that South Park did a episode where Butters has a kissing company with his pimps and hoes.
And so, I would like to see if there are any housing loan opportunities for some of my employees, and also what kind of corporate tax I should be filing under.
And exactly what kind of business are you running?
It's a kissing company.
And you're making a profit?
Oh, sure. My black employee, Charisse, over there, one time she made $2,000 on one customer. Can you believe it? $2,000 just to kiss a fella.
All right, get out of here.
Huh? What?
I'm not falling for it.
But I heard Acorn helps pimps and their bitches.
Thought Acorn helps pimps and hoes. And just as Andrew Breitbart predicted, a couple weeks later after the story, the New York Times apologized. It said the Times needs to be alert to these stories or wind up looking clueless, or worse, partisan itself. The ombudsman, that's the person responsible for interacting with the public, said the New York Times had tuned in too late. They had apologized right on cue. But I was about to learn, after doing this story, because this is just the beginning, I was about to learn what happens when you actually do speak truth to power, when you actually do afflict the comfortable. I was about to learn how bad it is when the empire strikes back. 3 months later, I was arrested in New Orleans. I went into a federal building. I said I wanted to talk to the senator. I showed my real driver's license when I walked into the federal building, but that didn't matter. I was arrested. I don't know what they arrested me for. They charged me with trying to wiretap a United States senator. I couldn't figure it out. What am I going to do, wiretap her with my iPhone? I'm just trying to take an internet video. In fact, I had told the people who arrested me, I said, I'm here to make a video. And they said, oh, wait a second. You're that guy, that O'Keefe guy that does the video. I said, yes, that's me, thinking that would help me. Well, the local law enforcement said, yeah, you're that Acorn pimp. I said, yes, that's me. And they go, hey, we're going to have to keep this guy overnight. And they charged me. And they put me in shackles. They put me in handcuffs and shackles on my legs. They put my mugshot on the front page of the Sunday New York Times. So when you walk into the Starbucks, there I was. And I understood what it was to be subject to a severe political hit. Because the reason why people don't do this sort of work is because you don't want to be attacked. You don't want to be smeared. You don't want to be falsely accused. How did they do it to me? It was something else. In the affidavit, they said that a man was alleged to have waited outside in a car with a listening device. Sounds nefarious. Sounds like I was up to no good. Do you want to know what the listening device was? My buddy had an iPhone in his pocket. And the federal judge got involved, and people said it was an unusual situation. Usually federal judges don't get involved in misdemeanor cases. The federal judge even wrote a motion. It said that federal buildings and federal office have been the targets and threats of violence. Again, what am I going to do? Kill a federal judge by recording the senator with my iPhone? I'm a United States citizen. I'm allowed to go talk to my elected representatives. And when I got out of the jail, they took my belt, they took my wallet, they took my phone, and they took my money, so I had no money, and I had to panhandle to get the $20 necessary to take a cab back to the airport. And this is a true story. Now, as Martin Luther King would say, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And ladies and gentlemen, the world is round. And when people try to do this sort of thing, what goes around comes around, because 3 years later, all the people who prosecuted me resigned in disgrace. And then there was this, it's not to get into the weeds, but there was all this scandal. They had blogged anonymously about the defendants. They had leaked information they shouldn't have. I confronted the lead United States attorney who, does this man seem like he has a guilty conscience or what?
Listen to me. Listen to me, hobbits, okay? Listen to me. Listen to me. Pay attention to me.
Okay.
Listen to me. You're a nasty little cowardly spud. All of you. You're hobbits. You are less than I can ever tell you. You are scum. Do you understand? I didn't prosecute your case, ass.
New York Times best-selling book. New York Times best-selling book. It talks all about it.
I recused. Here.
I thought hobbits were supposed to be the good guys.
Listen
Well,
to me.
turns out the world is round. Jim Letton resigned. They all resigned because they were anonymously blogging about my case.
My resignation as United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana will take place.
He resigned. And the Washington Post had to print a retraction. They said I had wiretapped a senator, but the big retraction on page 1 said he didn't wiretap a senator. So, moral of the story, and I'm going to keep going because I got more to show you here, but you got to keep going. You got to keep fighting. You can't give up. You can't quit. You got to keep moving on. And move on we did. Laura Loomer, who spoke before me, in 2016, she was the communications associate for Project Veritas. She helped distribute these videos throughout social media. This is Anderson Cooper teeing up maybe the biggest story of Project Veritas' career. In 2016, went undercover into Trump rallies and showed these Democratic operatives, this is the Trump versus Hillary campaign, inciting violence at Trump rallies and blaming it on Trump supporters. Let's watch Anderson Cooper key it up and see some of the clips from these Democratic operatives.
Video emerging of a group of pro-Clinton political operatives talking about stirring up trouble and provoking violence at Trump rallies. The video comes from Project Veritas, brainchild of James O'Keefe, who's got a less than stellar reputation for accuracy.
They just can't help themselves. They just can't help them. Less than stellar reputation for accuracy. Name one thing that I have published, words coming out of someone's mouth that wasn't true. Because I can show you about, I don't know, 300 retractions they've made about us. 300 retractions they made about us.
Video emerged.
So this guy, Scott Fogle, we caught him on tape. We sent our full-time undercover reporters into the Hillary Clinton campaign and all of the derivatives and caught, and by the way, they talk about Mueller, they talk about Russia, they talk about all this stuff. But these people were caught on tape. These are people on videotape. There's no anonymously sourced allegations. There's no anonymous hearsay quoted by Bob Woodward quoting somebody else. This is someone, his own words. Listen to this.
It doesn't matter what the frickin' legal and ethics people say. We need to win this motherfucker.
If you're there and you're protesting and you do these actions, you will be attacked at Trump rallies. That's what we know.
There's a script. Okay. There's a script of engagement. Sometimes the crazies bite, and sometimes the crazies don't bite.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully innocent.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, Hillary knows through the chain of command.
Yeah.
The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners. Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group. The Fogle Group goes and executes it on the ground.
Saying we have mentally ill people that we pay to do Make no mistake. Over the last 20 years, I've paid off a few homeless guys to do some crazy stuff.
This guy was talking about bird dogging, hiring people to incite violence at the rallies in Chicago, at the Trump rallies. And one of the people that Scott Fogle referenced was an elderly woman with COPD, a woman he was clearly referring to as Shirley Teeter in North Carolina. This woman would go up to people at events, touch them on the shoulder. They would swing around at the woman and she would fall to the ground. Scott Fogle claimed credit for Shirley Teeter in this clip.
She was one of our activists.
She was one of your activists who
had been trained up to bird dog.
Trained up to bird dog. So she was one of our activists. Now, this is where things get interesting. This woman, Shirley Teeter, sues me for defamation, for quoting Scott Fogle, referring to her. I got the complaint. I said, why am I being sued? Shouldn't she be suing Scott Fogle, the guy who took credit for? Anyway, she sues us for defamation in this case that goes all the way to a federal court. They put me in a room, and I said, James, why don't you settle the lawsuit? $50,000, whatever. First of all, it's a lot of money. I said, so help me God, I will not settle this lawsuit. I'm not going to give you one. You can bankrupt me. You can take the clothes off my body. I will not. And by the way, I pled guilty to a misdemeanor in Louisiana because I had no money. I had nothing. What would you do? I had nothing. So we fought. I would never settle a lawsuit again. And I have not lost a lawsuit since. So we go. I got 11 minutes left. We go to trial in North Carolina.
Happening now in Asheville, the trial over a lawsuit against a right-wing group known for using disguises and hidden cameras to uncover alleged bias and corruption. A disabled woman is suing Project Veritas,
who claims she was then libeled in a video
produced by Project
Veritas and founder James O'Keefe.
Shirley Teeter says the group released a video 1 month after the assault. She says that video led to online threats, which made her fear for her safety.
Fear for her safety. This was her with the oxygen. They had 6 lawyers. 6. They had depositions for weeks. This is what they do to us. And we say, we're going to go through it. We're going to fight through it. We're not going to settle. We're going to. And by the way, they had their sympathetic individual, which they had no facts, they had no law, they had no case. But you know what? We know how to fight at Project Veritas because our lawyer, he was blind. And he was no shrinking violet. He was one of the best lawyers you can find who just happened to be blind. We go to trial, we go to the courtroom, we get to the point, the plaintiff rests their case, we're about to give our case, and the judge says, hold up. This is outrageous. He says, if citizens in the media, this is a quote from a United States federal judge, if citizens in the media are handcuffed by a fear of liability that's detrimental to discourse, it's detrimental to society, and it's detrimental really to our fundamental freedoms. The federal judge says, if I rule against Project Veritas in this case, it's detrimental to our freedoms. Why? Because this country was founded upon the idea that we have informed consent. That is to say, we make decisions because we receive real information about what's going on in the world. And our crooked, corrupt, fake news media doesn't give us real information. But there are some people who do. And the federal judge says, if I rule against them, he says, and he gavels down, he says, case dismissed on a rare directed verdict. That's extremely rare. A directed verdict in federal court, that means that the jury couldn't possibly find evidence. And the federal judge says, oh, you can appeal it. You can appeal it to the Fourth Circuit. But if you do that, this is what the judge says.
If I have gotten this wrong, and the Fourth Circuit says that this is not what the law is, I hesitate to think where the First Amendment is going in this country.
Every day, they put our reason for being on the line. Every day, they try to shut us down and get us to quit with political hit jobs and smears. We had to spend over $500,000 on this case. I could have given them a few bucks to settle, but I didn't. We didn't. Why? Why? Because there are some things more important. There are some things more important. There are some principles at play here. There are some things that you all believe in. This is why you fight. Well, this is why we fight. And I love what the federal judge said, too, as we were leaving. He says, if they had sued Mike Wallace at CBS for these reasons, people would laugh.
But I think about in terms of, well, if Mike Wallace did that, could someone have sued him? How quickly do you think that case would be thrown out of court? It just seems to me that that sort of standard for any type of journalist is one that eviscerates the First Amendment.
Eviscerates the First Amendment. And when they say, well, you're not allowed to investigate the media, because I'm about to show you some things. When they say you're not allowed to investigate the media, we say we must investigate the media. We say it's consistent with the First Amendment to investigate the media. Don't you love this? Who would win? Billions of dollars of media corporations, just a little itty-bitty teeny hidden camera on our lapel camera, going into the media corporations. We must investigate the mainstream media. It's important to investigate the organs of propaganda that manufacture the consent. So our undercover reporter goes to Los Angeles, just walks up to Van Jones on the sidewalk and asks, hey, what do you think about this whole Russia thing? This is about 2 years ago. He said, what do you think? Is this Russia thing a thing? And Van Jones says this.
Hey, man. We met in Palm Springs a few years back.
Good to see you, man. You good?
Yeah. How you been? What are you doing? What do you think's going to happen this week? I mean, with the whole Russia thing.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really? Yeah. You don't think that...
Just a big nothing burger, says Van Jones.
Hey, man.
What if I told you the Russia thing was a big nothing burger? Welcome to CNN, home of the nothing burger. We grew up in the 1990s. We remember the Good Burger. Welcome to Nothing Burger, home of the Nothing Burger. Can I take your order? And CNN still says that the video is a hoax. I mean, I don't even know the hoax. It's literally a 15-second video. Walk up to the guy. He says it's a Nothing Burger, and I walk away. And the Chiron says O'Keefe video is a hoax. But there still is some semblance of shame in the media. They still do sometimes have to ask the difficult questions. This is one of my favorite moments when Van Jones is attacking me. I don't know why he's attacking me. It's his words, not mine. Anderson Cooper didn't have any of it.
This guy is a hoaxer. He's a fraudster. He's been convicted. He's paid fines. He had to apologize. He's a scumbag, and he does this stuff all the time.
So when on the tape you say that the Russian investigation was a big nothing burger, what do you mean?
Oh. Oh, man. That's not good. Yeah. He's not happy. He's not happy. So sometimes, you know, they do ask the tough questions, and we go on, we investigated other producers inside the news networks. It's funny how there seems to be a big divergence between how people behave in public and in private. We seek to reduce that. We want people to behave ethically all the time. Why didn't this guy say this on the air?
But honestly, you'd think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit.
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof. And so I think the president is probably right to say, like, look, you are witch hunting me.
You're witch hunting.
You have no smoking gun.
Now, why are they doing it? Well, he says it's about ratings. It's not about ethics.
Then why is CNN constantly like, Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
Ratings. Ratings. And what about journalism ethics? What about the media doing the right thing? Well, this guy has a few things to say about journalism ethics as well.
But all the nice, cutesy little ethics that used to get talked about in journalism school, you're just like, that's adorable. That's adorable. Yeah, this is a business.
This is a business. Ethics? That's adorable, he mocks. Of course, these videos are the #1 videos in the world. They're trending on YouTube. And then what do you think happens next? The Silicon Valley companies say, we can't have these videos trend on YouTube. We can't have this information get to the public. The people are too stupid. People are too stupid to see the raw information and to interpret it the way they want. So we start investigating the social media companies. And we get them to admit that they're shadow banning people. They would say this isn't a thing, but again, it's not my words. It's their words. Abhinav Adrevu, software engineer at Twitter, talking about what a shadow ban is.
One strategy is to shadow ban so that you have ultimate control. The idea of a shadow ban is that you ban someone, but they don't know they've been banned because they keep posting, but no one sees their content. So they just think that no one's engaging with their content, when in reality, no one's seeing it.
That's a pretty clear indication of a shadow ban. And by the way, the media, instead of actually investigating Twitter, which is maybe, you have to remember, these companies have more power than all 3 branches of government at this point. Instead of investigating, they say, Twitter says they don't do it. Well, what is that? What the hell is that? I'm a journalist. What do you think? We don't actually do this behavior. Well, of course they're going to say that. It's not investigative journalism. It's not journalism. It's propaganda when you quote what the spokesperson for the multi-billion-dollar media corporation has to say. But Project Veritas was just getting started. Because I know we got a few minutes left, just a year ago, everything changed when an insider came to us and said, the things I find Facebook doing, I'm an employee for Facebook, the things I find the company doing is appalling, and I feel the public has a right to know about it.
I saw things going on that I personally found to be troubling. I knew that something had to be done about it, and so I felt that the best thing to do was to inform the public.
And she came public and she released code of them deboosting videos. She even leaked us the algorithms. Facebook fired her. But she said there are some things more important. Another insider came public. This is Greg Coppola inside Google. He was an employee for Google as an engineer, and he went public just a few months ago.
It's a time to decide, do we run the technology? Does the technology run us? Are we going to continue to have elections that mean anything? Are we going to continue to think for ourselves, or are we going to just let the biggest tech companies decide who wins every election from now on.
And another insider leaked us information. This guy happens to be here, and I'm going to give him a shout out in a minute. This whistleblower leaked us information about Google's algorithmic unfairness. This sounds like something out of a George Orwell novel. Listen to this.
In this Project Veritas video, which I did watch last night, imagine that a Google image query for CEOs shows predominantly men. Even if it were a factually accurate representation of the world, it would be algorithmic unfairness. In some cases, it may be appropriate to take no action if the system accurately affects current reality, while in other cases, it may be desirable to consider how we might help society reach a more and equitable state via product intervention.
When I search something on Google, I expect to see the truth. I don't expect to see interventions to make things more fair. And using the information that we obtained, we had our undercover people talk to. This is the head of Google's innovation department, talking about 2016.
Elizabeth Warren is saying that we should break up Google. And like, I love her, but she is very misguided. Like, that will not make it better, it'll make it worse, because now all these smaller companies who don't have the same resources that we do will be charged with preventing the next Trump situation.
Charged with preventing the next Trump situation, changing the outcomes of elections. This prompted congressional hearings, which prompted other insiders to come public.
Do you think it's Google's job to, quote, prevent the next Trump situation?
Thank you, Senator. I don't agree with that.
This prompted another insider to come forward with emails showing that Jordan Peterson and Prager University were Nazis. These are all Jewish individuals.
Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Dennis Prager are Nazis. Given that that's a premise, what do we do about it? 2 of 3 of these people are Jewish, very religious Jews, and yet you think they're Nazis. It begs the question, what kind of education do people at Google have?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And now, I'm getting close to finishing here. This guy courageously and heroically came forward. He was the Google guy that leaked the information. He said, a burden has been lifted off of my soul.
I had every incentive in the world to stay at the company and just collect the paycheck. But I could never live with myself knowing that if Google was able to implement the plans that they were planning, I feel that when I'm coming and explaining what Google was doing, this is an act of atonement, okay, to make my conscience clear.
These people are patriots. They lose their jobs for a cause greater than themselves. We've released multiple ones, and I want you to give Greg, I want you to give the Facebook Insider and Zach a round of applause. And we're going to have more insiders come forward. We're going to be giving away books and t-shirts. If you're on the inside, if you know someone, send them our way. We're going to be breaking another story next week. I'm going to be making an announcement about that tomorrow. It involves a 3-letter agency, and you'll hear more about that tomorrow. Stay tuned. If you're lying, cheating, scamming, or stealing, we're going to make you internet celebrities.